Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Trump Trolls Trump. I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. This is just me making fun of Donald because he's a fucking idiot. There you go. That is the premise for the show. So it has been 292 days since Inauguration Day. That's 41 weeks of pure, unadulterated joy. This week marks 1 year since the 2024 presidential election was called, which is also joyful. That day, some say, well, one person anyway, unless there are a lot of Americans having their names legally changed to some say, really it's just Donald who says that January 20th, 2025 kicked off the golden age of America. I'm feeling it. I'm sure you are too, because some people are saying that it's been awesome. The big story this week was the impossible to ignore sweeping victories of the Democrats on Tuesday night. With two key governorships, New Jersey's Mikey Sherrill won in that race by 13 points, and Virginia's Abigail Spanberger by 15 points. Zoran Mondani won the New York mayor's race with over 50% of the vote in a three-way race, which marks the second time this cycle Andrew Cuomo lost. Such a shame. But there was so much more than those three major closely watched contests. In Pennsylvania, three Democratic state Supreme Court justices retained their seats, each getting over 63% of the vote, which is almost unheard of in a swing state. In Georgia, for the first time since 2006, two Democrats won non-federal statewide races. In California, voters resoundingly approved Proposition 50, which allows the state to redraw its congressional maps in response to Republicans' plans to steal the House of Representatives in 2026 by redistricting congressional districts in Texas and other red states. Finally, in Maine, voters rejected a ballot measure that would have required photo ID for in-person and absentee voting, which is a key issue in next year's fight for Senate control. The margins in these races were big, and turnout, especially given that it was an off-year election, was really high. So Donald, being the mature, reasonable adult we've all come to know, took it like a champ. No, he didn't. At 10:05 Tuesday night, Donald posted in all caps to his failing social media site, quote, Donald wasn't on the ballot and shutdown were the two reasons that Republicans lost elections tonight, according to imaginary pollsters. Oh, sorry, he didn't write imaginary, but they are imaginary pollsters. Donald is basically saying that because his name wasn't on the ballot, these losses had absolutely nothing to do with him. He's universally beloved. And then at 10:41, he wrote, quote, Republicans, terminate the filibuster, get back to passing legislation and voter reform, unquote. I'm not entirely sure how the filibuster is going to protect his fragile little ego from the fact that he and his party got crushed, humiliated, and metaphorically speaking, destroyed in an election that was all about him. At 10:58 p.m., he wrote, quote, pass voter reform, voter ID, no mail-in ballots, save our Supreme Court from quote unquote packing, no two-state addition, etc. Terminate the filibuster, unquote. There is so much wrong with those statements. It's hard to know where to start. But once again, this is just Donald demonstrating the fact that he knows absolutely nothing about how the country he runs works. And then there was a cryptic message posted at 11:01 that night in response to the New York mayoral contest. Quote, fuck you, Curtis Sliwa. I hate you, your dumb wife, that stupid beret of yours, and all your fucking cats, unquote. What? Curtis? Like, why? Leave Curtis alone. Oh, wait, sorry. That wasn't Donald. Oh, I mean, it was spelled correctly and the grammar is correct. So, and the punctuation is fine. So clearly that is not a post by Donald. And also, I'm not saying he doesn't hate cats. Cats certainly hate him, but he wouldn't mention them because he doesn't think about them. That was from formerly convicted felon George Santos, whose sentence was recently commuted by Donald. I do not know why George Santos has such animus towards Curtis Sliwa. But anyway, I have a question for you. Did Donald get the voters' message on Tuesday that they hate his guts and repudiate everything he stands for and everything he represents and everything he is? On Wednesday, Donald spoke to Fox Day TV's Brett Baer about all the lessons he's learned about himself and his opportunities for growth in the wake of his crushing electoral defeat.
She is a registered Republican all her life. She voted for you 3 different times, but she is not happy about how her prices have not come down that she sees. And she said this, quote, I want the Republicans to keep control of Congress in 2026, but something has to be done fast. I don't see the best economy right now. Wall Street numbers do not reflect my Main Street money. Please do something, President Trump. So I guess, what do you say to Regina and people like her?
Well, I do say this. Beef we have to get down. I think of groceries. You know, it's an old-fashioned word, but it's a beautiful word. Beef we have to get down, but we've got prices way down. And think of this. Energy. She drives a car, probably, and her energy prices are way down. And energy is so all-encompassing. It's so big that when energy goes down, everything comes down. Everything follows it. And I have energy down to 5-6-year lows now.
You think prices are coming down from this?
I believe that. Yeah, I think they're coming down, but I think they're down already. I think the biggest problem is Republicans don't talk about it. They don't talk about the word affordability.
Groceries, an arcane term, the etymology of which leads us back to the Ming Dynasty. I don't know. It's really not that old a fucking word. It is still in common use, I believe. I actually go to this thing called a grocery store. Today in 2025. It's not like I'm time traveling. Anyway, that is the least of our problems here. Essentially what Donald is saying is, don't believe your own lying eyes. You fucking idiot Republicans. Prices are not high. You're just stupid. Prices are whatever I tell you I believe they are. And if I feel in my gut that prices are down and energy is all encompassing, whatever the fuck that means, that is your reality. Because that's how life works. Let's talk about what's behind these perceived or, from Donald's perspective, imaginary economic concerns. The tariffs. Even though Donald's unwarranted, unconstitutional, and quite frankly, self-defeating and damaging trade war is crippling the nation's economy, he claims he imposed these tariffs not just for all of us in America, but for the whole world. And he wants your thanks.
You're happy with what you came out of it.
If I didn't have tariffs, we would right now, the entire world would be in a depression. Because, you know, that wasn't a threat against us. That was a threat against the entire world. I did this for the world. But, yeah, I would say that and I can guarantee you this, if I didn't put 100% tariff immediately on China, the entire world, because of magnets, a special kind of rare earth, et cetera, right, would be closed up. I did this for the world.
Well, that took a turn. He is drawn to the subject of magnets for reasons that are beyond my comprehension. But much more importantly, what a selfless little monster he is. He's done it for the world. He has sacrificed his ability to be bankrupt constantly by grifting off of the United States people and stealing from our treasury because he's so selfless and wants to save the world. Cool. Who knew? Even though it's obvious that the Trump regime's policies aren't working, Donald and his enablers insist the economy is on fire, I guess completely unaware that that can mean two different things. The American people need to understand that. Well, the American people do understand that. They know that the economy is being burned to the ground on fire in that sense of the term. But then you have people like Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick who don't see it quite that way. Here is Lutnick explaining things to Newsmax host Rob Schmidt.
The economy is on fire because of Donald Trump's economy is one that says tariffs, come on, build in America. You know, the president's been saying north of $15 trillion coming to build in America. That's going to grow our economy more than 4%. It could grow our economy more than 5%. I mean, these are numbers no one's ever thought are possible for America, and it's driven by Donald Trump's trade and tariff agenda. These policies are good for elections, but they're not good for governing, they're not good for leading, and they're not good for the people who voted them in. They just bought somebody's, good TV ads, and they'll pay for it. It's really sad.
It really is sad. It's sad how few people really understand some of these realities.
If by reality you mean fictions, yes, it is deeply sad. So we know, because we've been told this time and time again, that economic relief is just around the corner. I'm going to put my marker down on 2 weeks. And let's see in a week from now how much closer we are to that goal. And then on Fox Business, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent promised host Larry Kudlow that things are about to get a whole lot better, probably in 2 weeks, right?
A couple of things, Larry. One, I think 2026 is going to be a gangbuster year, and Americans will feel it in their pocketbooks, in their homes, and they will know that the economy is strong, that they are doing well. With the one big beautiful bill, and you and I were very early proponents for doing one bill, because could you imagine where we would be right now with these maniac Democrats if we hadn't, if we had other parts of the tax bill to pass? But the good news is we got it across on July 4th. But the thing with the bill, it's beautiful, but it's big.
No way. The big, beautiful bill is both beautiful and big. Whew. That's a surprise. Actually, it's abominable, but that's besides the point. I look at people like Lutnick and Bessent, and I often wonder, how is it possible for two men with so few neurons firing across what clearly is a tiny number of synapses in their very small brains? How is it possible that they can stand up, let alone string together a sentence? I don't know. It probably helps that everything they say is complete and utter nonsense, and nobody ever pushes back. Now, I want to get back to the election disaster that the Republicans experienced on Tuesday, simply because, I'm not trying to be mean about it. I just know that it's on Donald's mind a lot, and I don't want to let him forget it. Anyway, House Speaker, and a man who literally knows nothing except how best to please his master. So embarrassing. Mike Johnson held a press conference to sound the alarm about what may be coming next. But there was one comment of his that landed with unmistakable resonance. What could possibly happen if this voting trend throughout America continues through next year's midterms? I think I don't typically say such a thing, but I think Johnson might be onto something here. Take a look.
I told him this morning what we've talked about many times and what I've said here before. The president is on the ballot in 2026. President Trump is on the ballot next fall. Because if we lose the majority, if the Republicans, the common sense people here who are doing the job for the American people, if we lose the majority in the House and this radical element of the Democrat Party were able to take over, we've already seen that movie. They will try to end the Trump administration. He won't have 4 years, he'll have only 2, because they will move to impeach him probably on the first day of the new Congress in January 2027, and they will try to systematically unwind all the important reforms that we've done for the American people.
What, by impoverishing and starving them and taking away their health care and vaccines? Yeah, that would be tragic. Also, Mike, oops, Trump wasn't on the ballot and shutdown were the two reasons that Republicans lost elections tonight. Uh-oh, looks like you contradicted the little guy. Watch out. Because if he's on the ballot in 2026, pretty sure that means he was on the ballot 4 days ago. Anyway, we are almost out of time for this week's episode. There's so much we could not get to. Seriously, even for the Trump regime, it was a banner week of stupidity and idiocy. For instance, here's some of the things we could have covered. The sandwich thrower case, which is so embarrassing to say out loud as an adult human being whose neurons actually fire. The sandwich thrower case began this week in Washington, D.C. What is this, you ask? Well, a guy threw a Subway sandwich, a sandwich he bought at a Subway store, at an ICE officer way back in August. Ever since then, Jeanine Pirro and the DC AG's office has been trying to get this guy convicted, indicted and convicted. First, they wanted it to be actually criminal charges. It was knocked down to a misdemeanor, and they actually let this thing go to trial, which is so deeply humiliating for everybody involved, except the sandwich throwing guy. This week, the testimony began, and the New York Times reported the officer who received this grievous sandwich injury testified, and this is a direct quote, in case you want to feel even more worried about the state of our country, quote, "I could feel it through my ballistic vest. It kind of exploded all over. I could smell the onions and the mustard as the roll came apart." I could feel it through my ballistic vest. That guy must have some arm. My word. Also, if you're wearing a ballistic vest, are you really worried about some onions and mustard and bread? Fucking wimp. My only question was, did he wear a mask while he was giving that just riveting and damning testimony? Well, maybe it wasn't as riveting and damning as he clearly thought, because the jury, who probably were just so offended that their time was being wasted by all of this, found DC Sandwich Guy not guilty of assault. Hallelujah. And then some other fun stuff. The half-brother of baby J.D. Vance was utterly crushed at the polls. He ran for the Cincinnati mayoral race. He got about 20% of the vote after getting the endorsement of the Vice President of the United States, which apparently doesn't mean as much in Ohio as he seemed to think it might. Who knew? Actually, Ohio, that's pretty shocking. Anyway, then a new Fox State TV poll found that about 70% of Americans say groceries are more expensive now than they were a year ago, which is a very different thing. About 60% of them are blaming Donald. And we got to put this in perspective. Getting 70%, 60 or 70% of Americans to agree on anything is extraordinarily difficult. Right? Like, I don't even think 70% of Americans think that syphilis is bad. But 70% of them think that groceries are more expensive and Donald is to blame. Donald also told us yet again that he thinks you need an ID to buy the old-fashioned groceries of which he often speaks. I'm guessing that this is in large part because he's never been to a grocery store. The chairwoman of the House Republican Conference, Lisa McClain, told CNN that Republicans are so happy with the state of the economy that they no longer feel they need to vote, which is why they lost so resoundingly and in such a humiliating fashion across the board on Tuesday. In closing, since the results of Tuesday's election, the Republican messaging is all over the map. Donald, much like the puppy with the fedora sitting in the cafe drinking coffee and flames everywhere, believes everything's just fine. Do not, as I said, believe your own lying eyes. Howard Lutnick and his 2 brain cells are out there bragging that the economy's on fire, not understanding that that could have a meaning different from what he thinks. Scott Bessent is saying, okay, maybe not now, but next year, things are going to be great. What's a year of starving and not being able to clothe and your family or keep your house warm? It's a year, wimps. And Mike Johnson is just begging everyone to hold it together as if he has absolutely no responsibility in this matter. The point is, the Republican Party is a mess, and Democrats need to take advantage of that and maintain the momentum we demonstrated on Tuesday. Nowhere is Republican disarray more clear than in California, where Republicans held a press conference to announce their lawsuit against the state over Proposition 50, which I talked about earlier. What happened next? A perfect metaphor for the entire party. Absolute incompetence right out of the gate. Watch.
Good morning, and thank you for coming here today. My name is Mike Colombo. I'm a partner with the Dillon Law Group, and I have the honor of representing the plaintiffs in a lawsuit that we have just filed. We have filed this lawsuit because the map enacted in Proposition 50 for California's congressional districts is unconstitutional. Additionally, the state legislature has announced that the maps increase the power of Latino voters. Okay, I want these 5 stations to come up here. Kidding. All right. Let's tighten that up. There you go. All right. So I'm talking to AP, ABC, Fox 40, KTLA, and KCRA. No more interviews. All right, so the Prop 50 maps accordingly increased the number of districts in which Latinos are favored.
He covered up for that like a total pro. I'm in awe. Quick question. If it's illegal, if what California is doing with redrawing congressional maps mid-cycle, is it not also illegal in Texas? Or do laws not apply in Texas? Oh, I just answered my own question. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being with me for this week's episode of Trump Trolls Trump. We will inevitably be back next week because Donald and the entire Republican Party continue to lose what's left of their minds. In the meantime, everybody, stay safe, be kind, and I will see you next week. Thank you for watching this week's episode of Trump Trolls Trump. Please like and share this video to help us keep up the pressure on the Trump regime and spread the word about its cruelty, its incompetence, and its stupidity. If there's one thing we can always do, it's mock and ridicule this, like, almost beyond expression, inept regime. It's easy, and it's free. So please, subscribe to the Mary Trump Media if you haven't already. We truly appreciate everything you do.